Lumineers, and welcome back to the QuestCast. This is Garrick, and not Brent. Brent is out doing a amazing con out in Florida, so he couldn't join us this week. But I have a very special guest, my friend and teammate, Steven, aka Whitty, aka Gargaroth on Twitter. You may have seen him floating around. He played in the North American Championships for Disney Lorcana last season, and also most recently got a top 8 finish at the PPG Texas event. Steven, why don't you tell the people a little bit about your Lorcana background? How'd you get into the game? What is your journey that led you to this point, so the people know you just a little bit better?
Yeah, so I started playing in set 3 right at the beginning of Inkland's release. I found out about the game while visiting Disney, and they had a nice advertisement on one of their resort buses.
Okay.
So pulled up some streams and actually stumbled across Sky's stream way back in, I guess, March of 2024.
Yeah.
And it just became a Blue Steel cult member, I guess, from there. And yeah, was lucky enough to have Blue Steel take me all the way to Continentals through an LCQ. But it also took me to a day 2 in Toronto, which was great. Yeah, so drifted away from Blue Steel for PPG in Texas. Was lucky enough to top 8 with Amber Steel. And then now gearing a little bit back towards Blue Steel, going back home a little bit.
Going back to the roots, which is interesting because we saw the Sapphire Steel deck have a pretty decent showing in the first week. At SSG, we saw it on stream a couple times. The deck looked really cool, Scar, allies kind of stuff. You mentioned the Sapphire Steel cult, and it is there's a very tight-knit group of people, but I feel like the more I'm in Disney Lorcana, the more I see that every color combination just has one of these, and they're bigger or smaller depending, but Sapphire Steel, Ruby Sapphire, and Ruby Amethyst have to be the big 3. Those people love their decks, and they will do anything to make them work, and all 3 of them are in very, very dire straits right now. But I know you've been working on it, like you said, and you were running similar builds to that early on, but then the deck obviously did not break into tier 1 or tier even 2 maybe, right? I would say Amethyst Steel and things like that are in tier 2. But what is currently giving you hope that Sapphire Steel can break out and be a good deck without spilling all your secrets?
Yeah, so I think week 1 it did well because at the beginning of the format, no one really knows what cards to respect, what combos to respect, and kind of where to put their removal, where to kind of invest the removal in a given game. And so if you have Scar out, I think week 1 it probably wasn't getting the respect that it deserved, right? If you let Scar sit around for a turn, you can draw a lot of cards, right? That Alice can come out of nowhere and really just pop off. Early testing, there were multiple games where I was drawing more than 20 cards in a turn. But now that people have learned, right? They've learned their lesson. They've played more games in this set. They see Scar, they know what's about to happen. So it's got to go.
Right.
So now you want to kind of diversify your threats a little bit more. And in this case, the new build is really just about getting to high ink totals fast and then just dropping bombs every turn. Don't give your opponent only one target for their removal. Make sure they have 2 things that they have to, put them into a hard choice where they're going to invest that removal. So, drop your own Hades, drop a Tinkerbell, drop the new Jasmine that evasive on her turn or on your turn and gets buffed when you discard a card. Drop that. Drop the Vincenzo. That thing is super scary when it first comes out, but then it's also questing for 3. So you just want to keep the threats coming. And kind of the build I wanted to adapt was kind of how Sailor adapted his Emerald Sapphire deck, where it was just throw as much ramp as you can in there and then get to those high ink totals and just keep dropping scary things. So I am running, the 4 Tipo, 4 Sail, but then now I've also thrown in 4 Pleakley and 4 of the Donald Duck, the flat-footed Donald Duck, to
nice.
just keep the ink total climbing and just making it so you can start double spelling bombs at the end.
Yeah, the poor original ramp of One Jump Ahead still not making it in a deck with 4 different ramp cards. It's just so sad to see. Too bad it is uninkable. You can't really afford that in the current meta. There's so many like key cards that you have to play that are super uninkable. So that's interesting because we had Sapphire Steel has gone through this like crazy metamorphosis throughout the history of Disney Lorcana, right? It started off as this control deck that, like you said, did those ramp things. A Whole New World used the Beast Tragic Hero as like a card draw engine, alternate to the Whole New World. And then it sort of like branched off. You had items now were coming into the mix, and you could still stick with the Whole New World. You could stay off the Whole New World. You had Skies supporters and I guess you would call it the Church of Chicha. I don't know what you would call it, but you had so many different like permutations, iterations, and then Jack Shadows and Harlan showed up with the Kiwi version, which completely changed the texture of not only that deck but like the format as a whole. And we still have Alice available to us, but you're leaning back into maybe a more original style, or something closer to that, just heavy ramp, let's get to the end game as quickly as possible. The only issue that I see you might be having during these games is, where's my card draw coming from? Are you running Doc, Beyond the Horizon, Scar, all three, a mix?
Yeah, so I'll agree that the build is kind of resembling what the old No Wheel list would have looked like, the No Whole New World list. I think kind of the first splinter between the Sapphire Steel cult was the Whole New World versus No Whole New World builds, and that would have been around Ursula's Return, I want to say is probably when that fracture happened. I did go off down Sky's path with the No Whole New World build, and it feels very similar to that build, right? You're with a Whole New World, you just had access to a lot more cards very quickly and suddenly, honestly. So you were just flooding the board really, and then just making it so that your opponent between all of that and Cogsworth just couldn't respond. With the No Whole New World list, you were really just focusing on getting to the top of your curve and then just dropping bombs constantly, because you didn't have to worry about the 4 uninkable A Whole New Worlds. You just had these extra spots for these large characters that just had to be answered, like the Simba 7 cost.
Yeah.
So it's kind of mirroring that now, where it used to be we had Flaversham to refill our hand, so now you really just kind of got to put some pieces together and connect the dots here. I am running in the current list 4 docks and 3 Beyond the Horizons.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the Horizon is really, really good for refilling your own hand, but it also can take those dirty Amethyst Dumbo players off their giant dragon horde of cards, which is great. And you can get that out. You can drop that as early as turn 4 and really disrupt their plan.
Yeah, that's a really interesting card in this meta because unlike A Whole New World, you can choose the target, and if your opponent has no cards in hand, let's say you're playing against an Amber Steel player who is starting to run out of gas a little bit, you just don't give them cards, which is a really interesting play pattern. But no Scar. I guess if you play Scar, that means you have to lean into allies like really, really hard, and that sort of limits your deck building ability. I think as more sets come out, Scar will definitely get better and better and better, right? But it just seems right now it makes lists that run Scar just way too narrow and maybe too predictable.
Yeah, and one of the benefits that like where Ruby would have when pairing it with Scar is they have that Tinkerbell that can exert it right away, so you don't even have to wait to kind of benefit from Scar. Whereas I think Sapphire Steel really needs something additional to make the allies seem worth it. We were actually talking about this at locals on Wednesday, and somebody mentioned if they could just give us a character that says when an ally is banished, doesn't even say how, just when an ally is banished, you can benefit in some way. And really just lean into the allies a little bit more, without the very difficult to fit in uninkable cards, right? We have that 5-cost Jasmine that says when you quest with her, if you have no cards in hand, you can draw a card for every ally you have. It's uninkable. It's really hard to fit in, especially if you're going to include Scar. She herself is not an ally, so it just the number of allies goes down, the number of uninkables goes up. It's really hard to fit those things in. Even the Aladdin, that when you quest with him, you can drop an ally for free. Again, it's very niche. Uninkable, again, you're just raising those uninkable counts. We need something that you can throw in and just feels like a strong card to reward you for playing allies.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think as, like I said, more sets come out, the allies will get more support. I feel like it is a quote-unquote tribal deck that Disney Lorcana has their eye on
word.
Right now. I know. What would you call it? I mean, I don't even know what to call it. Like, a sub-name deck?
Subtitle deck? Tribal has like a negative connotation with it. People are like, oh, you're playing your puppy deck or your princess deck, and none of those have ever been truly legitimate. So yeah,
the closest thing is like the dogs deck, like Churna Dogs, which is now making a comeback somewhat in the current format. I think we will see that deck start to have a greater representation here sooner rather than later, because they have access to that powerful Under the Sea, which is the only board wipe that exists in the game right now, if you exclude things like Stop Chaos in its tracks, which they also have access to, and the Mob Song, which are not board wipes because they don't really get rid of anything. But yeah, no, that's a really interesting deck to talk about. Sapphire Steel, it could be an up and come. I mean, it's going to be up to you. You're going to have to put it on your back, and you're going to have to show people that it is legit. I know we have a 5K here coming up next week. Are you going to that in Delaware?
No, so I am a TO for one of my LGSs, and we're hosting our set champs on the same day, so I'll be running that one.
Okay, so when are you going to... I mean... You just gonna break this out at Milwaukee or what?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. We have a nice little hive mind going for the Sapphire Steel community. We got some very talented people working round the clock to make this deck not a complete joke.
Sure.
And hopefully I can lean on some of their testing and insights to get the best version possible out there before I go face first into the wall that is Milwaukee.
Yeah, for sure. So previous to this, obviously you've been playing in tournaments for the current Fabled format. You've done 2 pretty large tournaments of note. The tournament our team hosted, the Ink Inc. Open, and then you also were at PPG Denver. What did you play at both of those tournaments? How did it go? And I guess if you did really, really well, you'd probably still be playing those decks. So what happens?
Yeah, so for Ink Inc., I was actually going to play Sapphire Steel. That was the plan going into literally the day of the tournament. When midnight rolled around, I was still... Sapphire Steel was where I wanted to go. It was a Scar build, so my hope was that people weren't respecting Scar just yet. Then I let myself get talked out of playing Sapphire Steel and got convinced that Amber Steel was, best deck in format. Went over the lines with... It was Sky who talked me out of it, so I can blame him for everything bad that happens, of course. Everything good that happens, all my accomplishments.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I listened to what he had to say, and, it made sense. The line seemed very strong. The pairing into the matchup into Blurple is very, very good. It still is very, very good. And we did anticipate a meta share of, I want to say, like 40%. For Ink Inc. I don't know what it ended up being, but 40% is kind of what I imagined it would be. And, I played it that day. The inexperience playing on that style, even though I did have experience with Amber Steel, it did show. I did have some misplays, kind of approached some mulligans incorrectly, but, I'd been on the deck for 6 hours. So there wasn't a lot of confidence going into it, which was fine. Now, I did stick with that deck going into PPG Denver, so I think that was 1 week or 2 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
I gave on the 5K on Friday, I did give Emerald Sapphire a shot because I did feel like a lot of the room was going to be on Amber Steel. I did get that sense. So I have played Emerald Sapphire in the past and felt comfortable with that. I actually very much did not play well. I was using it as kind of a data collecting day, and had just traveled, and it was not the most ideal conditions for a tournament. So I did punt that one pretty bad, and then decided to make the switch back to Amber Steel for the main event on Saturday for the, I think it was a 15K or 10K, for the CCQ.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do think I played very well. I wrote up, all my matches after the fact, and went through the key decision points, and even after the fact, I felt very good about the decisions that I made and the mulligans. So sometimes it's not your day. Like, sometimes the best players are gonna just scrub out, and that's fine. I don't know what I finished, but I definitely was out of contention for top 16. I think I had a shot at top 32, but ended up just dropping once top 16 wasn't a possibility. But yeah, I was happy with how I played, and then since then the meta has adapted, and so everyone is ready for Truby Tuesdays.
Yeah.
And you gotta keep adapting, and I think Sapphire Steel is in the position to adapt and overcome kind of what the largest meta shares are, which are Blurple, Amber Steel, and now Emerald Sapphire.
Yeah, I like that idea of seeing how the meta is adapting and then adjusting your deck for that. I've talked about it many, many times, and even talked about it with Ed and JDZ on JDZ's live stream recently, where Zan was able to bring Emerald Steel when nobody was expecting it, and it was really good into that meta, and spiked a tournament with it, right? Ed did the same thing with Ruby Amethyst into the Bucky deck, playing the Sisu, which had a really solid matchup into that deck. And he also did the same thing at Worlds. And I think it is or not Worlds, sorry, excuse me. Continentals, where he just brought a deck that was like, this is just going to beat Ruby Sapphire, and there's nothing they can do about it. And you saw that play out exactly multiple times throughout the tournament. So that was really, really smart of him, and I think that is one of the best ways to approach these big tournaments, is see how the meta develops. Most of the players are going to play the decks that are in the meta, the big three, the big four, whatever it happens to be. And if you can somehow come up with a list, not necessarily even a unique new deck, but a list that is good into those four or those three, or the majority of whatever it's going to be, even if it's just the best deck, and you think there's going to be, like you said, 40-50% of the players are on that deck, if you beat a deck that beats it and you do pretty well into the other ones, you have a really good chance to do well. So, that being said, you're seeing how the meta is adapting and changing. You're working on the Sapphire Steel deck with others, the Sapphire Steel players in the shadows, making things happen behind the scenes, which is awesome. I am also doing the same thing, in the sense that I am letting the meta play out, and will bring the deck I think will be the best for Milwaukee. And we're in the phase right now where, what is enemy number one? Amber Steel. Everyone's going to tech their decks out over the weekend to beat Amber Steel, right? We saw this Emerald Steel list get top 8, right, at the Diet Coke Invitational, which that's a deck that can beat Amber Steel probably pretty consistently, right? Mother Knows Best, stall it out, just keep getting stuff back with Goof. You have Strength of Raging Fire, you have Calhoun's, Captain Hooks, yada, yada, yada. So all of that is going to change, right? The meta's going to change a little bit over the course of the next couple weeks, and everyone's going to be targeting that. And then Blurple is going to come back and be the big bad right before Milwaukee. And then Amber Steel won't change at all, and most people will be playing Blurple, and boom, Amber Steel's the best deck to bring to Milwaukee. So that's the plan. Change nothing and wait for the meta to realize that Blurple's actually the best deck, and it's not Amber Steel, and you have to beat Blurple or you won't win any tournaments.
It does it's constantly rotating. Every weekend you get it rotating a little bit more around the rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
And yeah, it's funny that you see Amber Steel as the big baddie, whereas I still think it's Blurple. Amber Steel, if you can just disrupt their plan early, you'll win most of the time, especially if you're playing any other Steel deck.
That's true.
Whereas with Blurple, they can just come back, right? They top deck a Hades, they're back. They top deck a second star, and you left Singer 10 out there. Sing Together 10, you're done. They just have so much access to their deck that you can't take your foot off the gas with them for a second. They're the absolute boogeyman, the Baba Yaga of the format, if you ask me.
No, I totally agree with you, right? I 100% agree Blurple is the deck, it's the best deck, it's the most consistent, it's the one to beat. But I think people have seen Amber Steel. They just won the first CCQ. It got second at that CCQ. It won Inc. It's topping all of these events consistently.
Yep.
They're going to try and beat that deck because they think it's the best deck. But in reality, it's just Blurple again. And Amber Steel is the deck that beats the best deck, but doesn't necessarily beat everything else as consistently. So that's what I'm banking on. Like, they're focused right now on Amber Steel, even though they still should be focused on Blurple. And by the time Milwaukee rolls around, I think everyone will be like, oh, I got to beat Blurple again. So I guess I'm not gonna play Amethyst Steel anymore because I can't beat Blurple. At least I don't think it can anymore. Like it was in the first week, and the second week, I guess Tiago was just on another level for those 2 weeks for some reason, just could not lose. And was beating Blurple, but it seems to have fallen out of favor significantly. Why do you think that is? Why do you think Amethyst Steel just basically dropped off the face of the earth? Most people are considering it like tier 2 right now, below even Emerald Sapphire.
Yeah, I don't think we knew exactly what his matchups were into that. I often think about when you see someone that wins a tournament or comes very close to topping with a unique deck, is I really want to know what their matchups were. Like think back to Atlanta, the DLC in Atlanta, where our champion was on Amber Amethyst, right? With the Fairy Godmother and the Cinderella Mufasa. With no songs in it.
Yeah. The only DLC winning deck with no songs in it, by the way, ever. I learned that like doing the research for my card reveal. I was like, every Disney Lorcana champion featured songs in the, and then I was like, no. So I had to say almost every. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's not surprising. Songs are such a strong mechanic in the game that getting there without them is very impressive. But again, not to take any credit away from how good of a player that Josh is. But I think he didn't play any steel the entire day one or the whole way to his championship run, whereas you run into one steel deck and that deck is cooked. One storm and your plan is off, one strength and you're actually out of the game. So I do want to know the matchups. I also think that a lot of the Blurple players that were at those early tournaments just didn't have access to Dumbos.
Yeah,
right?
that's
Didn't
true.
we know that Kendall, right, was posting publicly that he just didn't have access to Dumbos. So I think that you definitely do want to take those early results with a grain of salt, and then wait for the great minds to kind of see where things are landing, how to adapt to new cards, and be prepared for new cards, and how they're going to perform. So I do think that Amethyst Steel is a solid deck. It's definitely tier 2, but I feel like it was just put out there to answer the early version of Amber Steel, and now Amber Steel has even evolved to compete with it, right? Troubadour just flips that matchup on its head, right? I get to sing strength before you now. I don't care if you go first. I get to sing strength first.
Yeah, 100%. The Aurora and Troubadour additions to the deck just completely smoothed it out and like fixed every problem that I had with it. I was talking to Sky last week. There's an interview on my channel with him, and I was just ranting and raving about how I did not like playing the deck before the Troubadour and Aurora. Like, I would just play games and just lose and I should have been losing because I just didn't have the answers. I could never come back. If I wasn't on the play, I was done. Lilo did nothing because people would just not exert. We're just all standing around, and I'm holding a Lilo in my hand that does nothing. I'd rather be proactive, put a Troubadour on the board and sing, and then remove the threat, and then open up the floodgates. But yeah, Amethyst Steel would just sit there, and they'd quest with Elsas and Genies, and I'd sit there like, when's it my turn?
Yeah, it definitely is a deck that unlocks a new skill. I do like when I play or test a new deck, a new color combination, and I learn something new. And I think that I have oftentimes in my gameplay been impatient,
Hmm.
and I think that this version of Amber Steel really teaches you to be patient, right? You have to be sure when you quest that it's the right decision to quest. Like you can't, because your board can disappear in an instant if you miscalculate, right?
Yeah.
One tiny adversary, Madam Mim, and you're against Amethyst Steel, and your board is just gone. Um, and so you just really have to be mindful of those combat tricks and really think through everything your opponent is possibly going to do, which is just new skill unlocked, right? As you learn to adapt.
Yeah, 100%. I think that a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about aggro decks in general, and it's been a thing in trading card games forever. Like back when I was playing other games and I played mostly aggro decks, people hated it because it was just like, oh, it's no skill, yada yada yada. I think it's a completely different skill. And JDZ says this all the time, and I disagree with him. He's like, why are top players like Sky playing aggro decks when you could be playing a mid range or control deck and like display your skill so much more? But I think the best players in the world playing an aggro deck into a meta where the aggro deck is good, that's just going to elevate its unfair. It's going to make it look even more unfair than it actually is, because a lot of people are going to be tricked by Amber Steel. They're going to bring it, they're going to think it's an aggro deck, they're going to turn it sideways, and they're going to get shut out of the DLC in the first 2 rounds, because
Oh yeah.
that's not how it works at all. You have to know your spots and be really I think it's one of the hardest decks to pilot right now. Like sometimes sure, you're on
Ooh,
the
don't go that
play.
far.
Sometimes you're on the play and you just win, right?
Yeah.
But when you're in the mid game and you have to navigate those last few bits of lore without any reach in the deck, it's very difficult to do sometimes. And questing on the wrong turn or not questing on the right turn, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
just loses you the game on the spot. A very winnable game. So maybe it's not the hardest deck to pilot, but there are certainly easier decks to pilot in the Big Four, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I've definitely come to respect, and I almost hesitate calling what Amber Steel is now, especially Sky's List, calling it aggro. Like it definitely has the ability to aggro out a game. But it does have that control element where, that strength is so important. Like
Mm-hmm.
just a very timely strike right to your opponent can just win you the game right away. So it has control elements. It's not, like you said, just as easy as turning the card sideways. Um, and there is definitely nuance when it comes to playing an aggro, a deck with the ability to aggro out its opponent. I'm going to try and be careful with my words there. I don't want to call it an aggro deck. But, you know, take Kurt Spice, for example. Like his decks traditionally are probably what people would consider to be aggro decks. Like if you think about Chernadog
Mm.
in previous sets, I stream judged one of his games at I think the second Ink Inc tournament, and listening to him talk through his lines and his plays on his turn, like that's not just I can get to 17, I can quest for 3 next turn, I can win the game. Like it's so much more sophisticated than that. Like there are tools in the deck for you know interacting with your opponent, and if you interact at the right time, it goes a long way. Eking out that little bit of lore, like you said, it can win you the game, right? Whether
Yeah.
you not questing on the wrong turns wins you games, and just like questing on the right turns can win you games.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting that you bring up Kurt because I think he is like the perfect example of this. What he was able to do with the Diggy Diggy Hole deck during Continentals
Oh
and,
yeah.
and qualify for Worlds. It was just piloting that deck to its absolute like peak of potential, I think. And seeing him play Chernadog, like I played him at a set championship. It wasn't the last set championship, but the one before, and he was on Chernadogs, and I was playing our teammate Scott's pet deck, his Emerald Steel, like mid range with Clarabelles and stuff. It was basically Emerald Steel Song for all intents and purposes, right? And I was like, okay, this should be a really good matchup for me. And I was on the play, and like Kurt would just use the tramp to find the exact answer he needed to get out of the trickiest situations, and then over the course of like 3 turns set his board up in a way where he was just like, okay, quest with everyone, if you don't remove everything I win. And I was just like, how did that happen? So yeah, Kurt, if you want to learn how to play these style of decks, Kurt is definitely a player you should go back and watch his VODs. But these, I don't think we've ever just had like, well, we have had just pure aggro decks that like Amber Amethyst with like Lilo's Maleficence and Daisies and all that. You could play that and just turn everything sideways and hope your opponent doesn't answer you before they get to be prepared or whatever. But like the best aggro decks, quote unquote, have never just been, let me turn stuff sideways and then I'll win the game with my reach, i.e. like Merlin Goat or Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom. We don't have like a Lightning Bolt from Magic the Gathering in this game, and we don't have like a Frost Bolt, I think is what it's called in Hearthstone. So the decks are tricky to pilot, but even if you're piloting at your best, these mid-range and these control decks can just have it, and they can just beat you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the real negative of the deck, where it's like, I had no chance in this game, I lost it on turn 3, right? And that's where it feels pretty bad, because I wasn't playing these style, I was playing Ruby Amethyst. Whereas the only way I was done by turn 3 is if I was playing against Hyper Aggro and I didn't have a Fox, right? That's like my only out. So it just feels bad when that happens.
I do think that even now, like you're saying that the aggro deck can just have it sometimes and you can't respond. But I think that does apply to every deck. Like I mentioned, in the main event in Denver, I do think I played the list very well. And obviously it was the right list, right? I think I played 59 of 60 that Sky was running. So it was the right deck to choose. And even your Blurple opponent, even your Amethyst Steel opponent, they can just have it, right? They can just have the answer sometimes. That completely stalls you long enough for them to catch up, that completely shuts you out and punishes you for that turn that you maybe got a little bit too greedy. Yeah, I was happy with how I played, and I just, at the end of the day, was just like, yeah, you had the cards. This is what I said to Rob when he was dumpstering me on stream in Texas. It's like, sometimes you're the chosen one. Sometimes you're the child of destiny. Like, you just got to take those.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I feel like I've said 100% after every single time you said, but I'm agreeing with everything you're saying.
I'll try and throw in a hot take or two.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know about the Sapphire Steel deck. We can talk about that a bit more. No, I'm kidding. When Emerald Sapphire, when they have it, and you're playing Amber Steel, it's the worst feeling in the world. Like, they just, they have their turn 1, maybe you fire the cannons hit, they're like, hey, I got Tipo, brother. I got Tipo. Oh, hello?
Oh, you're back.
Okay, cool. No, I was saying, like, when they have it, they're like, okay, I played my 1-drop, and they're like, okay, well, I have Tipo. And now, okay, you don't have another way to remove it. Here's my Baymax. How's that taste? Here's my Scrooge with Duck. Oh, I'm singing Under the Sea. You lose. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the meta continues to shake out, because we do have new decks popping into the format. We've got the Sapphire Steel players working on something. We'll see what happens to that. But like I said, the Emerald Steel deck is making its way into the public consciousness now after the Diet Coke Invitational, and I believe by the time this comes out, there will have been a content creator set championship where LD, Lorcana Decks, played Emerald Steel as well and was able to do really, really well with it. I think a lot of people are going to give that deck a try. It should be really good into Amber Steel. It should be really good into Amethyst Steel. And there are some lines where it can really, really put Blurp on the back foot, as well as Emerald Sapphire, because of what we were talking about earlier, where the power of songs has always been a key thing in Disney Lorcana, but maybe now even more than ever, because each deck that plays a song plays like one, but that song is so important that maybe you don't even send it back in your opening, especially in the blind. Amber Steel players are keeping strength in their opening hand. It's really,
Yep.
really strong. Blurple players might be keeping Into the Unknown if they have ramp in like a decent curve. Because if you're in the blind playing against Amber Steel, you need it against Tiana or you lose. Emerald Sapphire might keep an Under the Sea if the rest of their hand looks pretty decent. And Ursula Deceiver is a card that these Emerald Steel decks are playing. And if you snipe that song, you can win on turn 2.
Yeah, this card has always been very, very strong, and in a format where there's just not a lot of card draw, it definitely stings so much worse. I know playing the Sapphire Steel, the second I see an Emerald card hit the field, every strength I own is hitting the inkwell. I will ink it, TPO it, I will get it out of my hand at all costs. Now I'm all aboard if we want to like start promoting Emerald Steel because my matchup is great as the Sapphire Steel player. I have loved testing against that, and it's just felt so comfortable. Just feels like all of my my steel cards come out a turn before yours, and mine are more impactful. Like, yeah, you'll get that strength out, but you know, you got to have 5 characters to take out this Tinkerbell, and you got to have 8 characters to take out this Vincenzo.
Yeah, and with these like mid-range lists, especially when they don't have a ton of high willpower, Vincenzo is like really insane. I was playtesting some Circle of Life decks. I know our mutual friend Richie has been playing that as well. And that is a really interesting deck that I think is a lot of fun and could be like, it could run really hot and just run into mid-range decks all day and just drop bombs on turn 4 that they can't deal with. But like the second they run into Blurple, it's just over. So in like the Sapphire Steel lists, I feel like you're saying it's sort of similar to how do you keep up with something like Blurple, because their endgame cards, Vincenzo's not taking care of those, right? And you have Hades, of course, but they have Elsa. They're also ramping to Hades. They have Into the Unknown. They have a lot more, I guess, instant, immediate spot removal than you have access to, and like board control tools, I think, for bigger things at least.
Yeah, so I'm definitely able to drop the benefit of Sapphire Steel, at least even in its original No Whole New World list, is that all of the characters have an ETB effect that is impactful. So like thinking to that those Emerald matchups where they keep bouncing your cards, they don't want to bounce any of your cards. I mean, what are you going to do? Bounce a dock? You're going to give me card draw. Are you going to bounce a flat-footed duck? Then you're just going to give me more ramp. Are you going to bounce a Tinkerbell? I get 1 damage to all your stuff again. Bounce Vincenzo, bounce Hades. They don't want to bounce anything. So all of those cards, you know, when the Blurple player has to respond to those, you know, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. And there's definitely points in the game where I just automatically win, right? My opponent drops a Dumbo, I should be on 7 ink, I can drop Vincenzo, and I immediately take out the Dumbo. At most, they've gotten like 1 card out of it if they dropped it on 5 ink. You obviously have access to the Hades to just spot remove anything. And so when they, you know, ramp up to their high cost and they want to drop that big, you know, their big bomb and you Hades it, that's another instant point that you just win the game. If now your bomb resolved but theirs is gone. Same thing with hitting a Beyond the Horizon at pretty much any point, because you know their hand as they go through the turns is getting curated. So even if they have 3 cards and you Beyond the Horizon them into 3 cards, you probably struck gold, right? They might be sitting on that second star to the right that they're just waiting for the Singer 10. They're probably sitting on that Hades waiting for like the character for it to come out against. So just, you know, sending it off with a flat-footed Donald Duck and a Pleakley to take their hand away from them, and then following it up with a Hades on whatever they dropped the last turn, the game is over. Like the door is shut.
Yeah.
And all I'm looking for out of the Blurple matchup is a 50-50, and anything after that is just great. You know, there's other cards in there to combat the Blurple players specifically. So like the new Jasmine, like I mentioned, right now that's a 3 of. I could see it being 2 or 3. I don't think 4 is right. But also the OG, the classic it's Sapphire card Robin Hood.
Yeah.
You have more cards than me, I'll take an extra one. Like, that is, again, insane value. It answers a genie, it answers a Dumbo, it answers pretty much anything that you want to drop that has evasive on it, and then it quests for 2. All of these characters that I've talked about, quest for 2. Jasmine 2, Hades 2, Vincenzo 3, flat-footed Donald Duck 2. So you're gonna have to come to me before too long if you let me sit there with my characters.
No, that makes sense, especially the into the unknown point, right? Because
yeah,
I'm talking about, okay, Blurple has all these removal tools with Elsa's, Hades, into the unknown, etc., 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 right? But you have the removal tool, which you just so eloquently laid out, in the form of Beyond the Horizon. It's just preemptive, right? If they have 3 bombs in their hand and you hit all 3, like you said, you just hit the lottery and removed 3 big threats from the game, and let's say they draw like Tipo, Sail, and another like second star to the right. It might just be out of the game. But I'm sure you're running things like Vision of the Future, or no?
Yeah, for Vision of the Future, it was for Develop Your Brains, just because Develop really fits into the curve a lot easier. But obviously, the power of seeing 5 cards versus seeing 2 is quite a bit different. So I did switch that over from 4 Develop to 4 Vision.
Do you have any? You have the Tinkerbell, right? Is that your only Floodborn? I'm assuming you're never shifting that. Like, your only option is the Tiny Tactician. You're just ramping to it.
No, I'm just trying to get to 5 ink as fast as possible, and then hopefully some duck play can get me to 7.
Yeah, getting quackers out there.
Oh yeah.
What have you found has been the most troublesome matchup?
Ooh. It probably still is Blurple, because they can just, like you said, they're just very consistent. So if they hit their line to get their cards, like you can't match their card draw. So you have to kind of get them off of their engines early. So it is crucial that you answer the Dumbo immediately. It's crucial that you can prevent them from getting second star off. And to the Beyond the Horizon point, right? If it just takes discarding a Hades and a second star, and you've basically just discarded 8 cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've taken the 5 card potential of second star, you've taken the second star, and then the 2 others. So it really is incredibly impactful to hit them early with it, and then even late if they are really just hoarding the cards. I do think they will adapt to, when they see the steel matchup, to expect to be on the horizon. I think the better players will know to empty their hand. But then, like you mentioned, if you're going to an event with 4,000 people, the number of Blurple players you're going to run into that have that forethought of always keeping Beyond the Horizon on their mind, it's much less than the total population.
Yeah. So, for Milwaukee, let's make a prediction.
Oh boy.
Do you think that the meta will still be, for the most part, Blurple, Amber Steel, Emerald Sapphire, and Amethyst Steel? Or do you think by that time, we're a month out right now, just about, will there be another deck that has cemented itself in that, making it a pentagram? That's 5, right? Pentagon, thank you. Pentagram is something completely different.
Has a shape on the inside of it, has the star connecting the 5.
Yeah. Pentagon, thank you.
I think the meta is mostly settled. I think that you will get these rogue decks that can do well when piloted by an extremely experienced player. But I also think that 75% of the people that we'll see at Milwaukee are going to be, I don't want to call them casual players, but just like the people who aren't researching the meta day in and day out, and they're going to play what they're comfortable with, or whatever they saw do well early. So I actually do think Amber Steel will be the most played deck. at the DLC. We get a little bit of a preview next week. I'm sure it's Europe, so out of nowhere that Emerald Amethyst will come out of nowhere and be a huge meta share just because they love that color combination over there.
Yeah, somehow it'll win.
Yeah, I don't get it. It's such a weird dynamic where the Americans love their control decks, their ruby sapphires, and then they just love their mid-range tempo decks over there. But yeah, I definitely expect to see Amethyst Steel, Amber Steel, and Blurple be the top three. I think you will see very experienced players show up with Emerald Sapphire, and then I just don't see the Emerald Steel going anywhere. But I'll be interested to see the potential in some gameplay from a talented player.
All right, so give me your top 8 numbers. You don't have to give me players. That's way too hard. Because obviously it's going to be 8 Inc. members, and you'd have to leave somebody. Sure. You'd have to leave somebody out, which would not be nice.
That's tough.
So give me, what do you think the split of the top 8 will be between those 4 decks? And what deck do you think is going to win?
I think we will have a Blurple champion for sure, just by sheer numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we will see. So you want a top 8? I think we'll have. I'll go 4 Blurples in the top 8. I'll take 2 Emerald Sapphires in the top 8. 2 Amber Steels. I think it will be about that clean cut.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. If anything, like maybe an extra Blurple and maybe like one random deck, but I think it's probably going to be those 3 decks represented in the top there. Almost, I think, for sure. Yeah.
I think there being 12 rounds will actually punish the more rogue decks that can kind of sneak in.
Make it harder for them to run hot.
Yeah. I think there's just a higher opportunity for them to run into the meta matchup that they're really trying to avoid. Which I'm all for that strategy. I think that's great. Like if you identify the top 3 in a meta and say, I'm going to lose 100% of the time to this deck and win 100% of the time. I mean, obviously I'm being hyperbolic, but win into the other 2 and just, it's got to be your day. You got to be the child of destiny, right? In a tournament this big, you got to be the child of destiny. I really do like that deck building philosophy for major tournaments. So, but I think 12 rounds makes it even harder. And yeah, with this prediction, it also makes it that if I show up with Sapphire Steel and do well, I can be like the meme of the guy at the end of the podium with the bottle of champagne, just like shaking it up. Like, look at me with my Sapphire Steel deck over here doing things I should never be here doing.
Listen, if the Sapphire Steel deck is real, I'll be on it with you, brother. But yeah, no, I like that. I like that strategy. Like we mentioned earlier, Josh Paltry was able to pull that off, and I think maybe the second best example of that was the Ruby Amethyst Burn deck that Jonathan Ball was running in Seattle, where he just had such a great matchup into like the entire meta, and I don't think anyone really knew how to play against it. He left the tournament early and dropped out of the top 8, so who knows what would have happened if he would have played it out. But Emerald Steel ended up winning that. Shout out Luke Wonderland, amazing player.
Yep.
But yeah, I think no rogue deck is going to pop out and crush it. We could be wrong. I just don't see it happening with such a limited card pool. Like, in Atlanta, there was a similar limited card pool. So it could happen, but I think there are a lot more people playing the game now, and a lot more hours being put in. But maybe not, with Pixelborn not being a thing. But I don't know. I think there's just a lot more people playing, so maybe it would have.
I think more games are being played now because I think people have coalesced a lot more into testing groups and communities, and just regular locals that are willing to test. So I do think more games are being played now than probably were back then. Pixelborn for all of its all that it did for the competitive scene, right? It wasn't widely played, right? It wasn't like if you went to your locals and talked about who's been on Pixelborn in the last week, you'd get probably half the people be like, I have no idea what Pixelborn is. I don't know what you're talking about, crazy man. So,
There's probably mostly
yeah.
the top 1% were on there grinding, you would say.
Yeah, I know he posted the data at one point, but I would say probably the top 20% of
Okay.
players were playing it. So it's a good amount. Like they were quality games for sure. You knew you were playing against like people who cared, right? It's people who are self-selecting to invest extra time into the game, so they're naturally going to be better at the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like as my dog squeaks your toy. I think if you like take a look at who the most well-known players are in the game, a lot of them are like you can look at those top 25 Pixelborn ladder rankings and be like pick out the majority of the like best players are all there in those early tournaments as well. Like I know Kendall was in there a lot. Sky was obviously in there a lot. I didn't even know I was watching like his grind because I got into Lorcana like right at the end of Inklands, right at the beginning of Ursula's Return. That's when I started playing, and I was getting interested in like competitive stuff. So I was watching Savage play, and he was playing Sapphire Steel at the time as well, with Ariel, I believe, and it was the last day of the ladder. I think it was the last day ever of Pixelborn. And he was trying to get rank 1, and I was sitting there watching him, like, rooting for him, because he's the only guy that I watched. And I didn't even know until later that Sky was the other person trying to go for the number 1 spot, and they ended up 1 and 2.
Yeah, I remember watching that. That was a very exciting day. I didn't think Savage was on Sapphire Steel, though. I thought he was on
He was.
Ruby Sapphire.
He was
Oh,
on
so it was
Sapphire
mirrors
Steel.
the whole time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he played. I think he
honestly
played a
don't
mirror
remember
with
who won.
Sky to the. No, Savage did.
Savage won, yeah.
Yeah. I'm
I
pretty
gotta
sure.
remind Sky of that. That's good.
Don't tell him don't tell him I brought it up. But I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I was just like, wow, he did it. Let's go. And now
Yeah, I loved Savage's stream. He was, he popped up recently streaming another game, and I hopped into his Twitter stream. I can't remember what game it was though.
I was sad to see
I think he was
him
running
leave.
Riftbound.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it sucked when he left after Pixelborn shut down. I mean, it made sense.
Yeah.
Like he played Hearthstone. Is that right? I think so.
I think that's right. I found him through Lorcana, so I don't know.
I remember seeing. I think Moyen played Hearthstone a lot. The Rat played Hearthstone a lot. But these players that are just used to doing that online, yeah. And he played, I think, one DLC, and then like someone accused him of cheating or something, Savage, and then
yeah, that was an
since.
awkward situation. I do remember because Guy and I on the day after that happened went to go like introduce ourselves to him, and he was obviously not in a great mental place after it.
Yeah.
And it was. There's of course a lot of witch hunting in the Lorcana community when something like this happens. He was playing. It was Ruby Sapphire, and it was a How Far I'll Go, where I think both cards ended up in his hand, or something like that. He did end up naturally inking one of them, which is kind of crazy. So he ends up using his turn to ink the card he would have inked for free anyway. But yeah, you could tell that it was just someone who plays online a lot and not in paper very much, and
that stuff happens for sure. Like when I was playing,
mechanics got him.
I was playing on Voldemort a lot, and then this was last set, and then I started playing in paper. And was just making the most egregious. Like, I would play the Hades 7 and put 2 damage on my guy and not draw 2 cards. Because I was used to the thing doing it for me, right? Like, it genuinely happens. If you are too focused, you are going to get cooked because your actual mechanics, your physical tactile play needs to be up to par. Like, legitimately, grinding online is bad for you, I think. Like
I agree. Yeah.
it's just not the way to go. And now I hate to do it. It's like if someone wants to play with me online, I'll be like, "Can we do webcam, please?" Like I'd rather just do that. And obviously, it's not as fast, but I think it's just better for me to learn that way at least. But yeah, I think that whole thing, Ceviche, was completely harmless. I mean, I would say, you were probably cheating on your match when you didn't discard with Mulan. So I'd like to call you out.
Yeah.
I'd like to call you out on that, and you're done.
I cannot tell you how relieved I was when I rewatched it to notice that other card never got played.
Yeah.
That it literally didn't matter. Because as soon as I like took the headset off and someone asked me about it, I obviously didn't recall it happening or not. But I was like immediately mortified, and my opponent was like the nicest guy ever, and he was like, "Dude, you were cooking me that game. It did not matter. Like,
Yeah.
he was in the dirt, so he was super nice about it." But yeah, as somebody who, like I said, I TO for a local store here, and have judged a previous Ink. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely
It
pride
happens.
myself for like keeping this game honest. Like, crap like that does happen.
I mean, I was casting an ICL match, and Phil, probably the most famous judge in Disney Lorcana, was playing Ruby Sapphire against the Steel player who played Pete, and then he tried to play an action that turn. So,
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
a lot to keep track of. It's hard.
It happens. It happens for sure. So it's not easy, and it happens to all of us. But no, that was funny because like half the comments on the stream were about that. And I was just like, really? We have 12 hours and everyone wants to talk about... Because that's the only match they watch, I guess. This is the
We're
first
kicking
match,
off
right?
the stream that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just funny. All right, man. Thank you for hopping on the QuestCast here with me. Brent will be back for the next episode. These are now being uploaded on Brent's channel, Brent's Quest, the QuestCast on Brent Quest's channel. So you'll be seeing it there. Everybody make sure you like and subscribe to Brent's Quest. Obviously, you're here. It's a great place. I would also like to shill my channel, Garrick's Lorcana Lair, if you wouldn't mind checking me out over there. You can also find me on Twitter, KI_Garrick. I am on TikTok now at the Lorcana Lair and Instagram at the Lorcana Lair. So I'm doing this thing where I'm opening packs until I open an iconic. I'm also posting funny stuff over there now. Little funny jokes and memes and maybe little skits and sketches. So if that interests you, I guess go see how unfunny I am or how hilarious and knee-slapping, gut-wrenching, fall-over funny I am. Whitty.
Packs until an iconic? Did you get a raise or something? What are you doing over there?
No, I have a problem, I think. And I've opened like 18. I've opened 18. Haven't gotten one yet, spoiler alert. I've only uploaded 11, but for the people that stayed here this long, you get the real deep cuts here. I haven't opened one yet. I opened this though, which was cool.
Okay.
And
Playable for sure.
Yeah, a few legendaries, actually 3 foil legendaries in my 18 packs.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm gonna try and do it until I get one. We'll see. I mean, I'm going. I don't have. Do you have a pack? You want to give it to me? You can open it for me.
No, I got nothing. You think closed packs live in this household
exactly.
longer than 50
same
seconds?
Here. The only sealed packs I have are. And you can't even see it on my screen. I have a first chapter trove back there that's sealed. That's the only sealed product that I have. Matt Hash is supposed to be sending me a box of first chapter for rolling a 6 on stream, on JDC's stream.
Ooh.
Maybe I'll have to be, hey, can we turn those into like 3 boxes of Fabled instead? Like I think that's close to equivalent price, right?
Like 300 for a first chapter. The LGS I don't TO had one for 200, a first chapter box on Wednesday, and I bought it and opened it, and it was now worth $200.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's the value of the cards in that set have like gone way down since rotation. Obviously, it's like Elsa or bust. It feels like now. Because before you could get like Maleficent, Rapunzel. Those are all great hits. cetera, et cetera. And like even the rares were good. Like Maui Hero to All was probably like $10. So yeah, you're probably getting hosed on that. But at least it was 2 and not 3.
Oh yeah.
But Whitty, what do you want people to call you? Huh? Steven? Whitty? Gargaroth? What? You gotta pick something.
You forget that my RPH name is King Razzie also.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I got all the aliases. How am I supposed to troll people on Twitch and on the Lorecast with using my real name, right? I gotta have all these aliases.
That's true. You can have online aliases, but when you're winning DLCs and going back to NA champs this year, people are gonna want to know what to call you. You know, they're gonna need to find your metafont. No, I'm kidding. But I just refer to you as Whitty to everyone.
Whitty is good. I think so Whitty is actually when I was a teacher, what my students used to call me.
Okay.
And then when I joined Ink Inc., you guys were all calling me Whitty also. I don't know where that came from. Like if one of you was like
someone was calling you Whitty. Yeah.
I think my melee name might have been Whitty originally, and so maybe that's what happened. Is like when people followed on melee. That's what it was. But
yeah, don't you remember at Disneyland after every round I was like, Whitty, how are you doing? You're crushing. You don't remember me at all. It's crazy.
I was too busy throwing up in the bathroom between every round.
It only happened like twice, so you know I'm not that upset about it. But where can the people find you? Yeah,
so I do have a Twitter. I don't post very often except when I'm doing tournament runs that are not embarrassing to me. I do post updates. But yeah, that's probably the best place. I think my Twitter is like Garrick Lorcana. I do think it's King Razzie because I do love the story that is Razul was like my secret 2-drop. I had 2 tech cards for DLC Toronto. So the Razul 2-drop that you could heal with a popsicle and clap back on an aerial, which was really nice. And then the other one for answering Amber Steel at the time was the Kronk, the 6 cost that kind of operates like Tinkerbell does.
Right. I didn't know where that came from at all. I just this guy loves Razul. I don't know what the deal is, but now we know.
Guy like Razul?
No, you.
Yeah, this guy.
I said this guy. Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, okay. No, Sky's all in on Jim Hawkins, which is also a great Steel 2-drop. Yeah, they gave the best characters Steel 2-drops.
Still here. Yeah, Jim Hawkins. Great shout out. I wish the Ruby Jim Hawkins was good ever, but unfortunately, playing 2 things at once was bad somehow.
And I think just not having him with the locations that you had to play with it for him to be good it was bad. You had to have them both.
Yeah, which sucked.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you for joining us on this week's QuestCast, and maybe we'll have you on again soon. I like talking to you.
Yeah. Buddy. Yeah, I'll go toe to toe with Brent.
Okay.
I'll out-Whitty him.
Well, once you top, we'll talk about the Sapphire Steel list that you top with.
Man, I had to jump through hoops to get back here. All right.
Yeah, that's your only avenue.
That's my only channel. That's it. Yeah. Winners only. Podcasts are for winners. Like
from now on. I don't know why they let me on, but Brent's the one that's day 2 to DLC, not me.
Hey, you gotta let it go, right?
I'm a let it go gamer. A let it gamer.
Let it go gamer.
Yes, sir. All right, everybody. For me, Whitty, and Brent, this has been the QuestCast. We will see you next time. Peace.